The West Indies Federation was a bold experiment in regional unity among British Caribbean colonies. It officially existed from January 3, 1958 to May 31, 1962. Though it was envisioned as a step toward independence and strength through unity, the Federation ultimately collapsed after only 4 years. Here's a detailed look at its origins, compromises, inner conflicts, and the reasons for its failure. 1. Whose idea was the West Indies Federation? The idea for a federation of the British Caribbean colonies had been discussed as early as the 19th century, but it gained serious traction in the 20th century due to economic, administrative, and nationalist pressures. British Colonial Office. British administrators encouraged regional cooperation to streamline colonial governance, reduce costs, and pave the way for eventual independence in a more manageable format. Caribbean nationalists, leaders like Grantley Adams, Barbados, Norman Manley, Jamaica, and Eric Williams, Trinidad and Tobago, supported the idea of regional unity, though they had very different visions of how it should function. Political thought. The push toward decolonization after World War II inspired regional leaders to consider political integration as a pathway to collective sovereignty and development. Founding countries and their initial compromises. The Federation initially included 10 British colonies: 1. Jamaica, 2. Trinidad and Tobago, 3. Barbados, 4. Antigua and Barbuda, 5. St. Kitts, Nevis, Anguilla, 6. Montserrat, 7. Dominica, 8. St. Lucia, 9. St. Vincent, 10. Grenada. To make the Federation work, these countries agreed on several compromises. A federal government based in Chaguaramas, Trinidad, the Federation would have a central authority handling defense, foreign affairs, and economic planning. Equal voting. Smaller islands were given representation in the federal parliament far exceeding their population size, a concession by larger countries like Jamaica and Trinidad. Customs union delayed. There was an initial plan for economic integration through a customs union, though this was never fully realized. Common services. Countries agreed to centralize some services like the University of the West Indies, Caribbean Meteorological Service, and the regional shipping line, Federal Palm and Federal Maple. But even from the start, tensions brewed over sovereignty, resource sharing, and leadership. 3. Core reasons why it failed. 1. Unequal economics and population imbalances. Jamaica and Trinidad were far more populous and economically developed than the smaller islands. Jamaica had bauxite and tourism. Trinidad had oil and industry. The smaller islands relied heavily on agriculture and were economically dependent. Larger islands feared they'd be subsidizing the poorer territories without getting proportional influence. Number 2. Disagreement over the federal capital. The capital was located in Chaguaramas, Trinidad, instead of Kingston or Port of Spain. This was symbolic of Trinidad giving up its chance to be the center of power, but it also made the Federation feel remote and irrelevant to many. Number 3. Weak federal government. The Federation had no direct control over taxation or meaningful economic policy. Immigration policies, customs, and development plans were handled by individual islands, undermining unity. No common currency or serious customs union was created. 4. Nationalism over regionalism. Many leaders, like Norman Manley of Jamaica or Eric Williams of Trinidad, were more focused on gaining individual independence for their own territories than investing in regional unity. National pride often outweighed the Pan-Caribbean spirit. 5. Jamaica Referendum, 1961. Jamaica held a referendum in 1961 and voted to leave the Federation. The main concerns? Lack of influence in the federal system, fear of economic burden, and belief that Jamaica could pursue better terms on its own. The departure of the largest and most populous island was a death blow. 6. Trinidad's reaction. Following Jamaica's exit, Eric Williams declared, 1 from 10 leaves 0, signaling that without Jamaica, the Federation was no longer viable. Trinidad also withdrew shortly afterward, sealing the Federation's fate. Number 7. Colonial constraints. The Federation still operated under British control. It was not fully sovereign. The plan was to grant independence to the entire Federation eventually, but this became less appealing as individual islands pushed for their own timelines. 4. Leadership and political rivalries. Grantley Adams, Barbados, was the only prime minister of the Federation. He was respected, but his limited authority and lack of political charisma made it hard to galvanize support. Rivalries between political parties across islands added to the difficulty. The People's National Party, PNP, in Jamaica and the People's Democratic Party in Trinidad did not always see eye to eye with federal leadership. 5. Dissolution in 1962. After Jamaica and Trinidad pulled out, the remaining islands had neither the population nor the economic strength to maintain a functioning federation. Britain dissolved the federation on May 31, 1962. Several of the islands later explored smaller forms of integration through the Caribbean Free Trade Association, CARIFTA, in 1965, Caribbean Community, CARICOM, in 1973, Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, in 1981. Summary: factor contribution to failure. Economic inequality. Large islands resented subsidizing smaller ones. Weak central government. No real power to implement policy. Nationalism. Islands prioritized independence over unity. Political infighting. Rivalries and lack of trust. Jamaica's exit. Triggered federation's collapse. Colonial constraints. No full sovereignty. No shared destiny.